And then I will share the screen. So can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Okay, let's go to honors. I think we're on the Iliad, if I remember right. Yeah, sections of the Iliad. Let's see if I've got that in here. Some notes. We don't have to retype everything. We skipped it there. Let's try epics. I know it's in epics. Yeah, these look like my notes. All right. So the Iliad and the Odyssey, a lot of this stuff we're guessing about, and what I'm telling you is traditional, but may not be actually established fact. So the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid, these are all epics. Iliad and Odyssey are Greek, Aeneid is Latin. Iliad and the Odyssey are initially circulated orally and then eventually written down, whereas the Aeneid was written down from the beginning as he composed it, although it too was sung. You would get up and sing for your supper as the bard. You would go and eat, and then after they ate, they would have various kinds of entertainment, including you would present a portion of your work. The longer the work was, the longer you got to stay at this comfy castle and not get, okay, nice to have you, Homer, now we'll be seeing you next time you come through. Well, the longer his works were, the longer he could stay. And so the Iliad and the Odyssey go on for quite a while. These are written, the Iliad is written about 750 BC, the Odyssey about 720. And they talk about a war that took place about 1200 BC. In fact, there was a lot of debate early on, once people got kind of sciencey, is this even reflecting an actual event or not? Obviously, the details are mythical, but is there an actual war behind this? The Iliad focuses on the end of the Trojan War. The Greek alphabet comes from the Hebrew alphabet. It's a modification of it. And because there are fewer Greek consonants, they had letters left over, which they could turn into vowels. And so Greeks and Hebrews argue about who actually invented the alphabet. Because the Hebrews, it was the consonantal alphabet. The Greeks, it was the full alphabet. All right, 550 to 520. Pisistratus, the dictator of Athens, had the official text determined. So he had a public works program to figure out what exactly is the Iliad going to be from now on, and the Odyssey, because these tend to diverge over time. Right, traditionally, the author of both of these is a guy called Homer, who was also traditionally the author of the Homeric hymns. And it's pretty clear that whenever the Greeks had something in epic meter that they didn't know who wrote it, they would kind of ascribe it to Homer, especially if it was relatively old. So he would have been incredibly busy. Now, by tradition, he's blind, which means that he would not have been the one to write this down. It would have been an amanuensis, some kind of secretary. I don't know how to spell it. There it is, amanuensis. So we would probably say secretary today, but in traditional scholarship, they call them amanuensis. Homer sang it, then they would write it, and sing a little more, write a little more, and you could work out your lines a little bit each time. There are people that memorize it and sing it even today. This classic, very early Greek, which you could memorize and perform Beowulf in its original language, but nobody would understand it except scholars. Whereas the Greeks, this is recognizable Greek. It's different, but it's close enough that people can tell what you're saying, like us with Shakespeare. So Greek has changed less over the centuries than English. Do I have dactylic hexameter? Yeah, I need to write it on something though. All right, we've talked about the gods. There are, in addition to the Olympian gods, they're chthonic, which emerged from the ground. Technically, Hades and Persephone are kind of both, but mostly the chthonic gods are kind of monstrous, like the Furies were called up from the ground by the blood of a victim, and they've got snakes growing out of their heads. They're kind of like a Medusa. And we talked about the gods last time, so we're not going to delve into it too much. Question about the unity of the book. There are obviously earlier stories that are worked in that don't have that much to do with what's going on. Oh, let me close the door. Maybe the cat won't be quite so obvious. Where were we?
You were talking about the two types of the gods.
Oh, yes, and then we went on to unity. It seems like, whatever amount of traditional material this was, they were both worked over by an actual author who's more than just an editor. This is not like Aesop's fables, where you just put in a bunch of stories that don't have anything to do with each other. Both of these actually have a structure. They have a plot that flows. Iliad is about 12,000 lines, Odyssey 15,000. Now, they're divided into 24 books. Now, why do we call these books and not chapters?
I'm assuming that's sort of just how they did back then, I'm pretty sure.
Remember our writing lecture, the history of writing.
Or, never mind.
What would these have been written on? Were these etched into clay and baked?
No, they would have probably been either done with, not really the scrolls, but...
Yes, really, the scrolls.
Oh, the scrolls.
Yes, and it has something to do with scrolls. What is that?
is that they're just it's like they can only hold so much information. They're pain to unravel.
Right. They begin to unravel. And also, if you're in book 1 and you want to check out something in book 24 and it's all on one scroll, you're going to be in for a long afternoon of scrolling, right? So why do they call them books then?
Because they were comprised of because all the stories were comprised of multiple scrolls.
Right. They divided it into 24 scrolls. And each scroll is a book. Now, why 24? Hold on. Oops. All right. Here we go. Now, oops. I am going to introduce you to the Loeb Classical Library. The Loeb Classical Library is very important for semi-scholars like us. I'm sure we can find pictures of it. Yes, it's a vast number of books. Oh, I like this one better. All right, can y'all see it? The Loeb Classical Library. All right, so the green books are of the great Greek works, and the red ones are the great Roman works. You'll see that they're more green than red. The Romans made pretensions about being of the same level of artistry. And, you know, I mean, also that people kept writing Latin forever. This leaves off with kind of the end of the classical world. You go to the church fathers and stuff for the rest of the important Latin. But the great thing about the Iliad, the Loeb, is that on the left page of each book, you have the original language, and on the right is a translation. In that, if you're a real scholar, like you're one of these British scholars, and you went to a private school and they started teaching you Latin when you were 6 and Greek when you were 7, and you read it like English, you can quote it because you've memorized it. You don't buy the Loeb, you buy the Oxford editions, which are more scholarly. But for the rest of us who kind of limp along in Latin and Greek, these are very handy. And you can already learn stuff from the Greek, knowing a little bit about the Greek alphabet that you can't recognize without it. So here's book 1, page 1 of the Iliad. Now, what kind of numbering system are they using?
The Roman.
Yeah, it's a Roman numeral. So is that going to be helpful for us figuring out why there are 24 books of the Iliad? Did the Greeks use Roman numerals? Well, that's a yes or no.
I'm going to assume yes.
No, of course not. They were Greek.
Oh.
They're going to use this barbarian alphabet.
Oh, yeah.
Now let's look at the Greek page, and suddenly you will know why there are 24 books. What is the Greek numbering system?
They used letters.
Yes, they used letters where we use numbers. And so, why are there 24 books? How many would there be if we were writing this in English?
$26.
Yes, because there are 26 English letters in the alphabet, but only 24 Greek letters. So you remember where Jesus said, I am Alpha and Omega? Well, this is the Alpha book, book 24, where we have the end of the Iliad is the Omega book. This is only half of the Iliad. But there. Okay, so alpha and beta. Uh-oh, things are happening. So yeah, that's why. Pretty cool, huh? How do you get rid of that thing? All right. So the Iliad is and the Odyssey are both 24 books long because there are 24 letters in the Greek alphabet. Therefore, traditional epics are either 24 or divisible, something that'll divide into it, like a common one is 12. So I ran out of steam after 12 books. If you're going less than that, it would be maybe 6. By the time you get much later, like Evangeline by Longfellow, which gave the Acadians and Cajuns their identity, that's divided into 10 books, but I think he was influenced by the metric system. And I have read one with 25 books, and I think that was similar, but most of them go into 24. So 24, 12, 6, 4, Paradise Regained. Paradise Lost is 12, Paradise Regained is 4. So if they're in this tradition, because there are 24 letters in the Greek alphabet, the Aeneid is 12 books long. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so genre is epic, which means it's long, it's narrative, so it's telling a story. It has what they call the epic machinery. There are gods and goddesses and supernatural things abound, at least early on. This may change eventually. And also it is in dactylic hexameter. Did I keep the Loeb around? Crap. Let's see. Dactylic hexameter. Oh, I think I have this. Yeah. Okay, I need a little UE thing. I'm going to switch to the drawing board. Let's see if I can figure that out. Back to the drawing board. Oh, that's pretty awful. Can you make that bigger? Okay, so each foot is a long syllable followed by 2 short ones. Long, short, short, long, short, short. Now, English, we do accented and unaccented, and it's almost always 2. So that it would be ba 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 ba. That is trochee, and iamb, because we like the iambic is da 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 da. So it's a very different kind of measure. There are 6 of them, which aren't going to be able to fit. The last one is always a spondee, which is two longs. So ba, 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 ba. All right, so we're going to stop that and go back to the screen. Let's let's go to my web page. I'm going to do one in English. Longfellow chose for his meter, because he was writing an epic, he said, I think I'll do, well, most English epics are in iambic pentameter, they're in heroic couplet, and the lines end about right here. So, you know, this is the forest primeval, the myrrh. Yeah, so for your traditional English line, it would end after myrrh. Only it wouldn't quite be right. So he wrote these much longer lines, and it has a very different feel to them. This is the forest primeval, so that evil is a spondee. The murmuring pines and the hemlocks. So it flows like that. Well, let's look at line 1. Oh. Well, we're going to go back to line 1 after a while. Main in de thea, Peleio Achilles. So I butcher that more than I do the English. But you can tell even there it's very different. You can really tell it's different from our normal lines that we're used to when you read Longfellow, because that one is in English. Okay, so Long, it's not naturalistic in the way that, you know, Greek. What it did was these two works and the other great works of Greek literature provided a common cultural basis for the Greeks, so that they had a Greek identity, to the degree that, what did they call you if you did not speak the Greek language? They called you a barbarian, because the words you said sounded like bar, bar, bar. So everybody who's anybody will learn Greek. That's like, you know, Americans coming into New Orleans and expecting all the French-speaking people to suddenly learn English. Learn English, because we're Americans. Well, the Greeks were kind of like that too. Speak a civilized language like ours. All right, so the scene of the Iliad takes place toward the end of the Trojan War. The Trojan War began when Achilles' parents were getting married, or that's where the idea of the Trojan War began. And Peleus and Thetis were being married off. It had been revealed to Zeus that if Thetis married, whoever she gave birth to would supersede the father. So Zeus, for once, does not want to have sex with her, even though he's got the hots for her. This time he remembers the bad headache he got last time, and so he marries her off to a human instead of even a lesser god, because if a baby god is greater than Hermes, his father, he might grow up to be greater than Zeus himself. So it's a human god affair. Everybody's invited but Eris, which is strife. So in anger, she sneaks up and throws in the golden apple. It rolls in there, and it says, "To the most beautiful." It's called the Apple of Strife. And Hera sees it and says, "That's for me. I'm the queen of the gods, obviously." And Athena said, "No, that's for me." And Aphrodite said, "Me, me, me. I'm obviously the hottest." And so they go to Zeus and say, tell us who this belongs to. And he says, no way. I mean, Hera's his wife. She already hates him. Athena's his favorite daughter. And he needs Aphrodite if he's ever going to get lucky again. So he doesn't want any part of this. Well, in mythology, there's always a shepherd. You need one. Anybody know who that shepherd was? It was a young Alexandros Paris, who is not only a shepherd, but as you might suspect, a prince of Troy. But it's been predicted that he would bring disaster upon his city. And so they sent him away to avoid that disaster. And by sending him away, they brought it about because he decides, well, they each bribe him, offer him great bribes. And Hera, it's going to be wealth and power, you know, what a queen can offer. Athena, she's going to make him really smart. And Aphrodite offers him the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. And being he's a Trojan man, but he's in a Greek myth. Which one does he choose?
Aphrodite.
Yes, of course, Aphrodite. I'll take door number 3, Alex. He sees the woman, he forgets all the other stuff. Now, what's the inevitable consequence of being the judge in this, regardless of whom you choose?
The other two are going to hate you.
Yes, and they're goddesses. So how long are they going to hate you?
Gods can hold a grudge for a long time.
Forever, right? I'm going to get you and your little dog too, and all your descendants. And so Hera and Athena are going to have grudges. And this is the first grudge we see having to do with the Trojan War. So he goes to visit Menelaus, and bad guest that he ends, he not only has sex with the wife, but runs off with her. And Menelaus goes to his brother Agamemnon, and they get together with the group, and they start heading out to try to seek revenge. All right. So this is toward the end, but not the end of the Trojan War. In fact, the most famous thing about the Trojan War isn't even in the book. And what is that?
The Trojan horse.
Right, the Trojan horse. Didn't we talk about Metis and Bia last time? I'm pretty sure we did, right?
Yes, we did.
Let's see if we can crank up our Greek alphabet. Got a lot of geo slabs. Here we go. So Metis is mind, and that is Odysseus, who's very Metis oriented. Bia is Achilles, and at some point, violence and force are not going to win the war. You've got to have the trickery, the brains. You know, the Trojan horse, super famous military strategy. Would it work today?
I honestly don't think so.
Right, we would think not, but how would we find out? We would conduct an experiment. I need to share the sound. All right, so let's conduct an experiment and see if the Trojan horse works today.
Donald Trump just announced his nominee to
God.
replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court.
But anyway, time now for our
Can y'all hear
news
that?
segment called
Yes, what have we learnt from history? Because Craig, the PM, spoke at a summit yesterday about the importance of history, and we agree with him. Often it pays to cast your mind back to see what impact history has had on our society.
Yeah, that's right, and to find out if we've learnt the lessons from the past. For instance, I've always loved the story of the Trojan horse, you know, where the Greeks won the war against Troy.
Yeah, Troy in Turkey.
Yeah, in Turkey, exactly. The Greeks smuggled soldiers through the city gates inside a giant wooden horse. They came out and won the war.
A defining moment in warfare history.
Exactly, but would anyone be so stupid as to fall for it again? Would anybody let a Trojan horse through their gates today? Can we just take the Trojan horse in? Can we just leave it here overnight?
You're going to pick up tomorrow morning again, are you?
Yeah, pick it up tomorrow morning.
Right, your left-hand side up the next one right now, I think.
Okay, mate.
Hi, God, I wish I didn't know when shit like this is coming in. We have a fucking great big wooden horse. It's being dropped off. All right, I'll just send him in the dock.
Okay, mate. Where's the history department?
Quadrangle.
Quadrangle?
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah.
Because we have traffic.
Hey, just got this from the Greeks. It's a gift. Can we leave it here for the night? Ask the Consul General. We just want to leave it here for the night. Hello? We can't leave this here. We've just got this Trojan horse.
Check inside before you let it in the gate.
Can we leave it here for the night?
Inside.
What do you mean? I'm sure there's no one inside. Why would there be anyone inside? Can we just leave it here at the barracks for the night? I had no idea he was in there. I had no idea.
Excuse me.
Hey.
Wait.
There is a huge fundraising deadline coming
Oh
up
my God,
for
there
Senate
is a
Democrats,
huge fundraising
and they need your
deadline.
help right now if they're going to
Right
meet it.
now.
I'm asking you to please donate now to help
Man, talk about a Trojan horse. Okay, so how well does the Trojan horse work today?
Yeah, free stuff is free stuff.
Amazingly well, right? What's the only place that didn't let it in at all?
I think it was the consulate, but I think they just didn't want to deal with a big wooden horse.
But which consulate?
Oh, the Turkish.
Turkish, because they were the ones that the horse was used against. Let's go to Schliemann. So by the 19th century, we were getting real sciencey about stuff. And sober historians were saying that the Trojan War, it's all a myth, right? I mean, it is mythic. There's a lot of mythic stuff here. But there was this guy named Schliemann who was convinced that there was enough local information that he could maybe figure out where Troy was. Now, why is this location such an important one? Think about getting from here to there. What are they sitting on?
Oh, they're sort of sitting on like a, yeah, it's like the river, or yeah, I just can't describe it. I'm bad at explaining my own thoughts.
It's a natural canal, right?
Yeah, that's
it
what I meant.
connects the Aegean Sea to the Black Sea. And if you park a city by a canal like that, what can you do with ships that are coming through there?
Tax them or block them.
Tax them, baby. Yeah, we're going to provide you services, like not blow up your ship if you pay. And so, I mean, the same reason New Orleans is where it is, right? It connects the heartland of the United States with the rest of the world. So come through here and spend your money. And we'll not only tax you, we'll provide entertainment for your sailors. People have a good time here. So Troy is in a great location. So he started digging at this really important spot. And he found indeed there was not only a city, but there had been several layers to the city. So phase 1 down here says Troy 2, Troy 3, the red is Troy 4. And each time something terrible would happen, but it's an important location. So you kind of, well, if they had bulldozers, they would bulldoze it. But, you brought in dirt, you threw it around, and you built on top of it. And so it's like a wedding cake with all these layers. Let's see. See what it looks like. Oh, here's another map. I hate small maps. You can't really tell much. All right, so see how it would have worked, like down here, the original city, each layer. Well, I don't know. That may be all one. But the idea is when the earlier city dies, you build on top of it. It's just so you start going up and up. That's why I don't like to. All right, so there's Troy today, the ghosts of the past. So yeah, Trojan horse really will work. Troy, a really real place. Now we don't know if there was a really real Trojan horse, but what we do know is it's not a bad idea, and it's a good example of meanness. Oh, here's dactylic hexameter. I just didn't scroll down enough. So that's a line out of the Iliad or the Odyssey or the Homeric hymns. And then you always end with a spondee. The next to last is always a dactyl, and the others can be a mix. Now the Greek word for dactyl means finger because you have a long knuckle followed by two short ones. So the meter reminds them of a finger. Here's 24. Oh, so much was here. Main and okay. So there's going to be a theme of the Iliad. Just a little different from Métis. It's mainness, except I seem to have accent marks in there. Did I have it here? Here it is. The first word of the Iliad is going to be the theme. The Mainen, now here's a case of the difference between Greek and English. Mainen is the direct object. Aiede, the second word, is the verb. Thea is goddess, and it is the person you're addressing. Sing, so this verb would be then imperative. So subject, verb, object. And then they too have the adjectival noun, seeing the anger of Achilles Pylades. Achilles, the son of Peleus. So this word Achilles modifies Menon at the other end of the sentence. So in English, we have to reword that, right? Sing, O goddess, the wrath of Achilles, Peleides. Yeah. I once read the Iliad in Limerick. Sing, O goddess, the wrath of Achilles, that gave the Achaeans the willies, and sent numerous shades down into Hades of heroes laid under the lilies. Isn't that great? Okay, so we rounded that. All right, so let's get to book one. What happens in book one? Why is Achilles angry?
Oh, that's because Agamemnon took his rightful treasure that he claimed from the city that he sieged.
His war bride, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about that a bit. Why did Agamemnon take Briseis? Did he just wake up cranky one day? Say, I'm going to take your woman. They're arguing about something. What was it? All right, so Agamemnon had his own war bride. That's a euphemism. They take these women in battle and then use them as, well, however they feel like it, because they now own them. But usually they'll have sex with them, and that's what this is all about. There's this young woman that Agamemnon has taken named Chryseis. And who shows up to intervene on behalf of Chryseis?
Was it Achilles that?
Well, Achilles intervenes because something bad has happened.
Isn't it Apollo sends a plague down on them?
But we're missing a link. Why does
it was her father? It was
right.
It was Chryseis. Chryseis.
I think that's the way it's spelled.
Yeah, him.
Chryseis. Yeah. So Chryseis comes to take Chryseis home. He says, I've got valuable treasures, ingots and jewels and whatnot. And what does Agamemnon say?
Nope, she's mine.
Just get out of here, old man, before I kill you. She's going to wait on me in the day, and I'm going to have sex with her at night because I'm an asshole. Now, who does Chryseis serve?
Apollo.
Right. And so if you dishonor Chryseis, you dishonor Chryses. And if you dishonor Chryses, who else do you dishonor?
Apollo.
And so Chryses prays to Apollo. And what does Apollo do?
That's when the plague is sent down.
Right, because Apollo, among other things, he's the god of healing. And if you're the god of one thing, you're also the god of the opposite. So Demeter is the goddess of the grain harvest. But what is the opposite of the grain coming in the way it should?
Failure.
Right, crop failure, famine. So she is the goddess of the abundant harvest and famine. Apollo is the god of good health and
bad health.
Plague, right. I wonder if Trump had something to do with the corona. Maybe he dishonored the wrong woman, and Apollo is striking us down with the COVID. So anyway, traditionally until modern medicine, let's say since World War II, more soldiers and people died in war from disease than died from actual wounds, because you get a lot of people together in a small space. They're under stress. They aren't eating the way they should, and they aren't able to keep clean the way you would like to, assuming they're in a culture that bothers with such things. And when a plague comes, that's a perfect setting for people to die. And so people start dying, and the leaders of the Greeks come together for a convocation, right? We're going to have a little talk. And what are the men, the generals of the army, telling Agamemnon, the king?
Was it to return Chryseis?
Dude, you've pissed off Apollo. What were you thinking? And he says, oh, and finally Achilles, he's the best warrior, right? He can kill any of them. And he says, dude, you got to do it. He says, I'm the king. I'm an asshole. If I have to give up my woman, guess what? In recompense, I'm going to take your woman. Which gets us to this word. Can anybody figure it out? Let's see how our transliteration skills are coming along. Okay, tau comes out to be what? All right, so help me out, folks. Wake up. Huh. What does tau transliterate into English?
T.
T. Thank you. This one's an easy one. All right, next letter.
Up. Is that an?
I think that's I.
Right. Yes, it's an iota, which becomes I. Third letter.
Is that a mu?
Yes, it is, which becomes
M.
M.
M. And the last letter?
E? Is that an E?
Yes, Ada is long E. Timmy. You should have a bar over the E, but I don't know how to do that in presentations. So it means it's a long E, Timmy. So I read a whole book one time, and the guy, it's a great book. It's very important. But I was about a chapter away from the end of the book. He was talking about how the Greeks love time, and time is very important to them, and it's all about getting your time. In fact, the argument I'm making now is from that book. It's The Best of the Achaeans by Magee. And about 10 pages from the end of the book, I realized that this whole time he had been transliterating Timmy. It wasn't time at all. The gods don't want their time. The heroes don't. They want their Timmy. And do you remember? Do you ever watch South Park?
Yeah.
Do you remember Timmy?
Of course I do.
Of course. My name's Timmy. Well, that's this Timmy. Timmy is short for Timotheus. Theos is God. Timmy is honor. I guess we'll transliterate that. I mean, italicize that. Yeah, Timmy. So Timmy is honor. And the Greek gods, they're different from the God of the Bible in that he wants all the Timmy. They just want the Timmy that's coming to them, because they recognize they have to share. They have to play with the other gods and goddesses. And so when Apollo senses that he's being dishonored, atomia, he sends a plague. also, Agamemnon interprets what's happening with Chryseis having to go back as him being dishonored. You're dishonoring me. Well, not really, because he was being given fabulous prizes in exchange. So you can either be honored with a woman that's hot, or you can be honored with gold and ingots and stuff. One thing the Greeks found really funny was when they were dividing up women at the end of the Trojan War, they were casting lots, and when it came Odysseus' turn, they got somebody that was old and ugly, and they were saying, well, yeah, you deserve that. You're an asshole too. But not the kind that Agamemnon is. He's sitting in his tent, just happy as a lark, while everybody's dying around them. Wow, that is super familiar, isn't it? Where have I seen a leader like that before? We can let 200,000 Greeks die, and we'll be just happy as long as we're still the king of kings. Strut around like we're really something. Yeah, this is a typical problem of leadership when the leader is putting, his ego first and not thinking about others. So he takes Briseis because he wants her to replace Chryseis. Maybe spelled right. Okay, so what does Achilles do at this point?
Well, he doesn't really do anything. He's just furious, and he kind of
does nothing for 18, 20 books, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you expect him to do? He starts to do the expected thing, which is draw a sword and kill Agamemnon right there on the spot, because that's what he's in the middle of doing. And Athena comes along and says, no, stop, don't do that. And we'll make it into a great story. This will make a great story. People sing about it. And so, Homer doesn't want the story to end in book one, right? And so this becomes the anger of Achilles becomes the theme of the whole Iliad. Everything that happens in the Iliad happens because of the Manus Achilleus, the anger of Achilles. Now let's talk about Achilles as a soldier. He's a great warrior. Would he be a great soldier? What would happen to him if he were a soldier in the U.S. Army?
He would probably be immediately either killed or removed because he couldn't control his anger.
Right. You're disobeying orders, right? You wind up in Fort Leavenworth for insubordination. There's a word for it. But he's not one of Agamemnon's soldiers, is he? All right, so this brings us to another important concept in the Iliad. I guess we need a new. Oh, I'm not in Greek. Duh. Maybe I have it in my notes. We could save time that way. Here's Timmy. Atimia. Okay, let's get to oikos. So oikos is the Greek word for house or household. It's also nowadays a brand of yogurt. So if you go to the store, oikos is one of the yogurts there. And it also comes over into English in the form of oikos nomos. nomos is law, rules, oikos is household, so rules of the household, which gives us the word economy. Economy is a combination of oikos and nomos. So how do you run your household? That's why they talk about home economics. Economics originally was all home economics. You're kind of repeating yourself. Anyway, the organization of this early Greek society, and this Greeks were very hard to get beyond this. It's tribal. I mean, humans are 300,000 years old, and for 290,000 of those, anytime in your travels around the world that you came across humans, what was their configuration?
Hostile.
Now, how did they arrange their society?
Probably tribe-like.
Tribal.
Or
yes, always tribal. For 10,000 years or so, we've had these things called cities. We've developed the idea of the state. But for most of the time, it was tribes. And as long as the tribes got along, great. So one way you get along is through being related. So the oikos is the household. It's, you know, like Odysseus over Ithaca. You know, everybody on the island is in a sense part of his household. You know, the chiefs were basically like clan leaders, not the Ku Klux Klan, but the older clan. The clan was the people that were related, and then the head dude gave everybody orders. And then in order to get along with the folks from the next hill, who have their own oikos, you have to have this next thing called xenia, which is hospitality or friendship. It's based on the word xenos, which is stranger. By the way, Xena, the warrior princess, doesn't really have a name. Her name means stranger. So she's a stranger who shows up and does things and leaves. So she's kind of classic Western idea, you know, the nameless cowboy. And so a crime against your oikos was the highest, the worst kind of crime, because it's a blood crime, you know, your blood related. Next to it, the xenia allows people to get along, and it becomes hereditary. So that if our grandfathers were friends, we're supposed to be friends. It passes along to us. So, and it's a little looser than the oikos, but closer than just some random dude. So how does Agamemnon, Menelaus comes crying to him, my wife's gone, he took my woman. How does Agamemnon put together a army of 1,000 ships? Well, he gathers his brother, who's there because his wife is missing. He also gathers all his band of, not really brothers, but xenia, all his friends. Let's get together and let's go. And you know, they all expect to get their own amount of Timmy, an amount of all, you know, stuff from this war. And so Achilles is there, not as family, not as one of Agamemnon's troops, but because of xenia between Agamemnon and his own father, Peleus. And so if Agamemnon dishonors one of his allies, what's that ally going to do?
Retaliate.
Yes, retaliate, either strike back or leave. I'm here because Paris took Menelaus' wife. Well, now you've taken my woman. So how are we any better? It undermines the moral authority of the Greeks for Agamemnon to take away Briseis. We aren't any better than they are. So this still works the same way today with allies. when we go into war with allies, they're there by choice. Y'all are too young to remember the invasion of Iraq, right? So the first Iraq war, Poppy, put together a grand coalition because this country, Iraq, had invaded and subsumed Kuwait. And that's one of the prime things that the United Nations was put up to prevent, so we don't have so many wars. Hadn't kept us from having wars, but we haven't usually had that type of war where all of a sudden this country is conquered in the 13th province. Anyway, grand coalition. Years later, his son, Bush the Lesser, George Bush, he wanted to invade Iraq, but it was kind of obvious to anybody that was watching that it was all bullshit. He said, it was because Saddam Hussein, attacked America. Well, that involved Afghanistan and it involved Saudi Arabia. It did not involve Iraq. Not nearly as many people went. And he called it the coalition of the willing because they were willing. Well, Spain was willing. Well, at least the leader of Spain. They had an election. And the guy running against, I don't know if it's a president or prime minister, I think president, he ran against the war, said, if I win, we will pull out. Well, he won and they left. And guess what the Americans did? You hear about it, anything about us bombing Spain? No. We played them Aloha on our steel guitar. They were just, goodbye, see you later, Hoss. Come back anytime. This war's going to last, forever. All right, let's see some more of our questions. What's an epithet? My son in 8th grade knows what an epithet is. I know because I told him.
Well, according to the dictionary, it's an adjective or descriptive phrase expressing a quality, characteristic of a person or thing mentioned.
Right. We might call it a nickname if we want to keep it simple. But yeah, it tells you something about the person, place, or thing. So we know the Achaeans are well grieved, right? Now, what is a grieve? I have no idea, but they've got good ones. They've got good grieves. We know that Hector tames horses. We know that Zeus shakes clouds. We know that Achilles is angry. We know that Agamemnon is king of kings. So they tell us more about the thing, but they tell us over and over and over. So why so many times? Well, it has something to do, the longer this is, the longer I stay, and I'm, old blind Homer, I don't have to leave. So also, it's like saying in the middle of a line, you don't have anything to, so throw in a few epithets. Also, let's suppose I run out of steam about here. And I need 1, 2, 3, 4 syllables, 2 longs and 2 shorts. So they drop them in the way a rapper drops in rhymes. So if you're going to rap, you have to memorize a lot of rhymes. Well, Greek didn't rhyme, but it did have, it did have meter. And so you would have numerous epithets that you could drop in to finish out a line. And sometimes these work, sometimes these don't. There's this one case in the Aeneid, and Virgil died before he was quite finished. Poseidon was angry because the wind god was messing up his seas and he didn't want them messed up. Nobody checked with me. See, if I wanted a storm, he ordered a storm. And so he goes up to look around and see what happened. And it says he raised his placid head above the wind. Well, is this the time you want to be placid? But placidus, it's the same word without the US in English. It fits, placidus. So long, short. So obviously this word fit here, and he followed, like how sometimes a song goes wrong when you start following the rhymes instead of the thread of the song. Like if you're looking at the moon, what month is it? I'm looking at the moon. What month must it be?
June.
Yes, it has to be June. And I'm eating with a fork. Am I eating with a fork? What am I eating with, folks?
A spoon?
Obviously, a spoon. Guys, don't quit your day jobs. You are not going to succeed as rappers. Okay, so you're telling a story and suddenly you're carried away by the spoon and the June going with the moon instead of whatever the story was going to be before you had to make everything rhyme. So epithets can be great, they can also be horrible. Cipaliadio, Achilles. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 syllables. Okay, and we know the last two are long, eos, because they're always long. Omega is always long. O Achilles, O Achilles. There we go. O Achilles. Eade, Eade. So Eade, O Achilles. If I worked at this for several hours, I could figure out the first line. But anyway, we finished out this. We wanted to say Achilles, and we needed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 syllables of a certain length, right? So Piliadeo, 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 Piliadeo. So long, short, long. So that's a spondee. This is a dactyl. This is another dactyl, and that's a spondee. So we throw in Piliadeo. That's horrible. I apologize. My professor gave me a whole article on how to pronounce this stuff, and none of it made any sense to me. So I still limp along it, and it pitifully. I guess if I lived in ancient Greece for a few years, I could pick it up, but I think I'd still have that North Louisiana twang. Where are questions? Okay, so what is Achilles' tragic flaw? I think we've talked about that.
Oh, we're answering.
What is that?
So sorry. It's all of his anger.
His anger, his wrath. Although we might want to call it an epic flaw because this is epic, not a tragedy. But you can see how it serves the same purpose. Now, Achilles and Thersites say exactly the same thing. So one of them gets beat up, the other one does not. And why is that? Because Achilles is a prince, he's a general, he's an ally, and he's a badass. So if Odysseus undertook to spank Achilles with the flat of his sword, and not in a fun way, what's going to happen to Odysseus? Is there anybody in the army who can discipline Achilles?
Is there?
He is the best of the Achaeans. What's that mean?
He's technically their general.
Well,
They
no,
don't-
but he's their best warrior. If any of them tries to fuck with him, what's going to happen to them?
They're going to be killed.
He will kill them. You don't mess with Achilles. Thersites is, this just regular dog-faced soldier. So Achilles can get away with saying something because he's Achilles. He has status. Thersites does not. All right, let's talk about Paris Alexandros. Well, first, let's talk about Hector and Andromache. Don't we read about their brief reunion? So what happens there?
Andromache is telling him not to
Well,
not to
first
go
he comes in, he picks up his son. What happens?
Well, the baby starts crying very quickly because of the armor.
Right, he's got all this armor on. This is scary, and Hector takes off his helmet, and they both laugh and cry because at some level they know this is goodbye, right? Or any take could be goodbye. Okay, so she gives him advice, and what is the advice?
It just really pretty sure she was telling them just not to go.
Well, fight. You got to fight, or we die. But stay behind the wall where it's safe. We've got these.
Yeah, don't leave her a widow.
Yeah, Billy, Don't Be a Hero was a song when I was about your age. Billy, don't be a hero. But of course, Billy had to be a hero because he was Billy and he got himself killed. Now, does Hector thank her for her wise advice?
Well, I think he respects it, but he says he kind of has to because he'd be a coward if he hid behind the walls.
And he also says before that, you tend to woman's work, I will tend to man's work because I'm a manly man. So patriarchy, right? Never listens to the woman. And he's afraid of how people would look at him if he stayed behind the wall. But here's the thing. As long as he's alive, Troy cannot fall. They know that. As long as he stays behind the wall, they can't get at him and kill him, and he can defend the city. So it's why, and what is the consequence if he doesn't listen to her? He will die. She will become somebody's war bride. Achilles' son, Paris, I can't remember his name for sure. But anyway, he gets her as a war bride. And then their son, Asterix, this little baby here, there's a prophecy that if he lives, he will avenge the Trojans. And so Odysseus takes him up to the top of the tallest building that's still in the city and dashes him to death on the rocks below. We saw those rocks. So there's this baby scattered around there that Odysseus kills. And this is all because Hector will not listen to his wife, right? So these are terrible consequences from this conversation, him not listening to her. Good God. All right, what's this word? What's that first letter?
Is that a sigma lowercase?
That's
or
a zeta.
Zeta, so that's a Z.
Z, yes. And the next letter?
That's an O. Because
Longo, omega, right? And the last one?
Is Mo. Oh wait, no, that's not Mo, it's Ada.
Ada, right. Which comes out to
So
what words do we get from this? Zoe. We get zoo, we get zoological, we get zoology. Zoe is the Greek word for life. And so we've got in the balance here, life on the one hand and honor on the other. Timmy versus Zoe. Now for Andromache, which one is more important?
Life.
Life is more important than honor. What about for Hector?
Honor is more important.
You've got to have honor first. What if I lose my honor? What will the guys think? Oh my God, what will the guys think of me if I can't, go out there? I mean, leaders back in that day led from the front. Of course, we don't expect our generals to go out and fight, much less our presidents. I mean, George Washington, he put on the uniform, he led the army out, as president. What was it, the Whiskey Rebellion? But it's been a long time since George Washington did that, right? I mean, when I was born, Ike was still president. He had been a general. JFK was in the military, probably LBJ, I'm not sure. I think Nixon was. I think definitely Carter. He was in the Navy. Not Ronald Reagan. Poppy Bush was in the military, but nobody since Poppy Bush has actually been a soldier at one point. They all skipped, right? So they not only don't lead from the front now, they've never been to the front. Okay, so life is more important than honor is what the wife says. But he says, no, what would the guys think of me? It's, because honor is an external thing. Honor is something somebody shows you. It's not a core part of your character. And so honor can be given. It can also be taken away, the way Briseis was. And he's afraid of the same kind of dishonor. So what would you say about the relationship? You think Andromache loves Hector?
Yes.
Definitely, right. Okay, let's look at our other couple, Paris and Helen. So the logic, these two guys, and this is something, the telescoping stuff that would have happened throughout the Trojan War into this book. So you would assume that when the army shows up, Helen would be on the roof pointing out to Priam who all the Greeks are based on what their armor looks like. That's not something you wait 10 years to do, right? Also, they have a logical idea about how to settle this. Paris wants to be with Helen, so does Menelaus. So what's the obvious way to settle this problem? Drive by any bar in Louisiana on any Saturday night. A couple of rednecks out in the parking lot doing this.
They're going to be fighting.
Fighting over?
A woman.
A woman, in this case, Helen. And so whose fight is this, logically? Paris and the proper husband of Helen?
Menelaus.
Right, of course. Both these guys honor. Both these guys say they're great warriors. Let's put them out and have a duel. And so they do. And for a while, it seems to be all going well, but things turn against Paris. And so what happens then? Now, who is Paris's patron god?
Aphrodite.
Right. Now, is she a fighter? You know, if it's Apollo or Athena or Ares, they hulk up the person or smart up the person. But she's a lover, not a fighter. So what does she do?
He probably allures the husband.
She puts a fog around Paris, spirits him away, and sets him down in Helen's boudoir. And because Aphrodite is nearby, Paris says, "Oh, Helen, you look so hot. I want to have the sex." And how does Helen respond to this?
He berates him for running away.
"You coward. You should have stayed there and died and been killed by a better man. You told me you were a better man in battle. You know, what are you doing?" And then Aphrodite says, "Hey, you better, straighten up or I'm going to smite you with ugliness or hit you with an ugly stick." Because if Aphrodite is the goddess of love and, being attractive and all that, she's also the goddess of the opposite, right? And she can make you ugly and unwantable and nobody will ever want to be with you. So they wound up, having angry sex. So does Helen love Paris?
No.
We would say not, but let's think about Helen and who she is. Before she was Helen of Troy, where did she used to live?
Sparta.
Sparta. And what do Spartan women say to their sons and husbands and fathers when they march off into war?
Break a leg.
Break somebody else's leg. They tell them, come back with your shield or on it. And what does that signify?
You either come back a victor or you don't come back at all.
You come back dead, right? When you run away in battle, when it's a rout, of course, you want to lighten your load. And what's the easiest way to do that?
You drop the shield.
Drop the shield, and it's huge dishonor. We have poets that write poems about how horrible they feel because they left their shield on the field of battle and ran off.
And, it's a punishment, I believe, in Hades. If you die and you are a coward and left battle, you get a special punishment.
I did not know that. So yeah, it's huge dishonor. So come back victorious or come back dead. Now, did they love their sons and husbands and fathers?
Yeah, but
of course, but they have a different theory about Zoe and Timmy than Andromache did. What's Helen's theory about Zoe and Timmy? What's more important?
Timmy.
Just come back alive? Timmy. She is the most beautiful woman in the world, right? How do you recognize her? How do you give her Timmy? You put her with the best, most badass warrior there is, right? That's her Timmy, is getting matched up with the warrior. She's the head cheerleader, right? She's going to date the captain of the football team / quarterback. And if he does, Runkle, break his leg, what's she going to do?
Dump him and find someone better.
Right. She's going to dump him and go with the new captain / quarterback of the football team because she's the best looking cheerleader on the squad. She's the school's head girl. And it's only proper for her to be honored by being with the greatest athlete, right? Okay. So maybe she loves him, but if she loves him like a Spartan wife, right? And it's like, you better show up when it's time to show up. And think about it. Paris is a horrible person. He did something dishonorable, Atimia, when he took Helen. when the Greeks show up with 1,000 ships and he wants to save his city, he's got a couple of honorable choices. He can go out and face Menelaus, and if he wins, he keeps her. If he loses, she goes back. He'll be dead, of course. Now he goes into, Helen takes him into the city. Does he have to stay there? No. If he was brave, what could he do? And
go out and die fighting.
Go out and finish the battle. If he acknowledges that he's a big fat coward, there's still another honorable option. And what is it?
Go out and fight.
No, he's cowardly. He's not going to do that.
Oh.
So what's the alternative that will save the city? Why are the Greeks there?
Well, the Greeks are there for the fort.
Get back the girl.
What was that? Two of you were talking over each other. I couldn't see who the other one was. Why are they there?
The girl, right?
The girl, right? They want the girl, Helen. Okay, so I'm not going to fight for her. What do I do?
Give her up.
Give her up. Here's Helen. I lost. You won. Fair and square. I ran away. See you guys later. Here's some money. Go back home. Does he do either of these things?
No.
He is thoroughly devoid of honor, right? Why should Helen respect that? How could, she may love him. Does she respect him? You can't respect a man like Paris. He doesn't deserve it. All right, let's talk about Diomedes and Glaucus. So who is Diomedes?
Wasn't he a warrior who was blessed by Athena?
Yes, he's the greatest warrior next to Achilles. And Athena gives him the ability to see the gods, which is a mixed blessing. He wounds Aphrodite and he wounds Ares. What's the problem with wounding gods? It's the same problem Paris had when he had to decide between the goddesses.
They hold grudges.
They hold grudges. And so he sees Diomedes and says, okay, who are you? You've got this golden armor on. Diomedes sees Glaucus, which means sweet. Anyway, he asks his lineage before they fight because he's new to battle and he's splendid and he may be a god, but also one way you get Timmy is when you kill somebody, you kind of absorb their Timmy. If you've seen the old Westerns, there's a old grizzled gunfighter with like 50 notches on his belt. There's the young gun who wants to fight him so he can kill him and get not only the 1 notch, but the 50. So I will get all of your Timmy that way. But they find out something. What do they find out about each other? Somewhere along the way, one of their ancestors befriended another one of their ancestors. And so they have a relationship of Xenia. Oh, we are in Xenia with each other. There are a lot of people I can kill. There are a lot of people you can kill. Let's go kill them and not fight each other. Now, is this imaginable on the modern war?
No.
The way we fight today, right?
Yeah.
Each soldier looked unique because you wanted to get your Timmy by your prowess. Do our soldiers, each one of them, have a different costume that they wear?
No.
No.
It's all designed uniforms.
Yes, uniform means?
Probably the closest thing we'd have to customization is maybe like medals or ribbons or something, but that's about it. That was based off of what you did.
Yes, you do have that, but do you wear that into battle?
No.
Our generals dress exactly the same as our privates so that they don't get shot. In the Battle of New Orleans, famously, Jackson told his sharpshooters to shoot anybody on a horse because the British did not bring cavalry. The people on horses were therefore officers. And so it was like the fourth level officer sends a note at the end of the day. And Jackson's like, why is this guy sending me a note? And, well, he's in charge of the army now. You killed all their officers. Yeah, we have uniforms. We all look the same, but they all wanted to look different. So what do they do before they part? Okay, we're going to go do our theme, but first, let's exchange armor. And so Glaucus takes off his gold armor and exchanges it for the bronze armor of Diomedes. Why do they do that?
I guess it was a sign of maybe respect or...
Yeah. And Xenia, the way that when a person comes to your house, you show them Xenia by putting them up, but also you give them something, right? You give them gifts, and then when you go to their house, they give you gifts. Well, what do you have to give out here on the battlefield?
Weapons and armor.
That's it. So they exchange weapons and armor, and they go about the way. Now, another armor story is when Patroclus dies, Hector gets Achilles' armor, and he's running around, and I killed Achilles. So he's really pissed off now. I mean, he just thought he was mad for the last 20 books. Where does his new armor come from?
He claimed his, I think it was his mother said that it came from Hephaestus.
Yes.
Himself.
So these are divine. And then we get this big ekphrasis, which is when you stop telling the story and start describing something. So you get this description of the armor, especially the shield of Achilles. And then he goes out and kills Hector, starts dragging his body around, saying he wants to eat the body of Hector. So what happens to kind of bring him to some kind of peace at the end of the book? He's been angry since the beginning of book one. How does he kind of resolve this? And he's sad, but he's not so mad anymore.
It was kind of, I believe it was Hector's father came to Achilles to beg for his corpse back.
But before he got a messenger from the gods, who brought him word, normally Hermes. I would think Hermes, but I think it was actually his mother they sent. Said, dude, you're going too far. Now, why was he so mad that Patroclus was dead? I mean, what did he think would happen when he came to a war? What happens in war?
War is brutal. You take everything you got to deprive the enemy of this. Well,
you kill the enemy until they surrender. And so Patroclus was trying to get into the city. He was climbing over the walls because he wouldn't listen to Achilles. And Hector comes out and does what Hector does, which is killing, right? So who should Achilles really be angry
at? Patroclus.
Well, really, I mean, whose job is it to be out there and to make sure his men stay alive in battle? Himself. Patroclus whined and said, let me go, coach, I gotta do it. I'll make the touchdown, I'm gonna do this. Okay, you can take my armor and pretend to be me, but just run around and scare people. Don't get yourself into trouble. But really, That would be like me sending my 5-year-old out to play in traffic. Sure, kid, ride your bike. I'm going to stay here in the house because my show's on and I don't feel, and then my kid gets run over. Patroclus is his best friend, number 2, probably his lover. And the Greeks were very fluid about such things, by the way. Anyway, he goes out, he gets killed, but it was Achilles' job to keep him alive, to be there as, and if he died and they were both side by side, fine, such things happen. But the rage has been displaced. He's really raging at himself, but he's putting it all on Hector. Hector's just doing his job, right? If you don't want to get killed, don't try to invade my city. Why are you angry? This doesn't even make sense. All right, so his mom comes and tells him, you've got to let his body go back to his father. And he will give you prizes, ingots and jewels and whatnot. So you'll get your Timmy, right? But something more than that happens when Priam enters the tent. When Achilles sees Priam, when Priam sees Achilles, what do they think of? All right, Priam sees Achilles and says, oh, you remind me so much of my son Hector. And when you look at me, think of your father, Peleus. What's going on back home with you being gone 10 years with all the good fighters? Somebody might be doing the same thing to him. And they both cry. And they enter into that relationship of Xenia as well. He's, sit down, eat, I'm your host. And you must eat, you know, or you'll dishonor your host. He's like, don't make me angry because you wouldn't like me when I'm angry. But he goes ahead and, you know, sees Priam as being like his father, which means he recognizes that he and Hector are brothers. So this idea of being your brother's keepers, even in this different culture, even in this war situation, is somewhat there. The enemy is your brother. And that's a hard one for us to see, right? We want to otherize the enemy in such a way that we dehumanize them. Like it's popular to show them as rats or something like that. But in heroic warfare, you recognize that the enemy is your brother. All right, any questions? I think we got through most of it. Well, some of it. A lot of this is just kind of extra stuff. All right, so you're sure there are no questions? Once we unzoom. All right, I will see you guys next week.
See ya.
See ya.